Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for all of those of you here on this session. Just a couple quick things. This will be probably a short session because we're only talking about PDF and BIM files. So it'll be fairly short. Go ahead and I have a little slide deck just to add an extra 30 seconds to the class, by the way. Right, so when I think of PDF files, we're seeing a lot of use of PDF files, of course, and it's been around for a little while. Ben actually reminded me that PDF actually stands for Portable Document Format. So they have been around for quite a while. Now, the tag from this class is we're going to use Carson CADnet, C-A-D-N-E-T, CADnet, to import both the PDF documents and the BIM files into CAD, right? So that's kind of the tag behind this one. We're going to go through that workflow. Now, when you think of PDF files, not all PDF files are equivalent. You know, I tend to see, especially in my region, where maybe a surveyor is working out of a PDF document generated by a construction company or a government agency or so. So some of the PDF files might be vectorized, which means that they were produced by, let's say AutoCAD or Revit or something like that. And they have information, they have layers and things like that. But there's also a situation where it's more of a scanned document, paper plan, somebody scanned it and saved it into a PDF. You will have those situations where you have more of what I would refer to as an image. It's an image PDF. It's not a vectorized PDF. So we'll talk about kind of those two options for a little while. We'll bring some files. And then on the BIM files, and Ben, as he said, reminded me like, well, could you explain what it is? It's building information modeling, which is a workflow, right? So when you think of BIM files, at least here in the US, and in many places in the world, the standard is actually Revit, right? So Revit is Autodesk. I always tell people Revit is not BIM. Revit is just one of the tools. It just happens to be the popular, the standard here in the US and many other places. But there's also another format, which is the IFC. IFC standing for Industry Foundation Classes. So there's RVT files and IFC files that you may deal with in different projects. So we'll talk about those also as we go through this class. Now, as I said, this is not a long PowerPoint. This is really to give you guys an intro into what happens there. All right, so as I said, I wanted to go through a couple of things that questions I get asked all the time. I was on a training class literally Friday, and I had a couple of people, we were talking about importing documents and working with some of that stuff. And actually they have Revit too, but they're using DWGs. But anyway, so there were some questions about, hey, if we import a PDF, how is it located? What happens? What do we need to do? So on and so forth. So I figured like, let's use an example like that. Now I see it a lot, as I said, with surveyors, when we have a survey record, something like that, we can bring in, that could be an underlay. Or it could be something that we need to use for maybe creating a 3D model for construction, right? So that there's many applications. So what I want to do is I'll start with a brand new drawing. Let's go here, and I'll use the Carson template. There's nothing fancy out of it. If you have your own templates, that's perfectly okay. That's really about layers and things like that. So that's perfectly fine. All right, so I'm going to click here and I'm going to say new drawing. Let's go ahead and go into my web training folder, working PDFs, and I had a PDF folder there. So we'll call this one PDF, something like, let's call it webinar. There we go. Perfect. Now, the first example that I want to bring in is, it's a real life project actually. I got it from one of our guys, Carlson guys out in the Midwest. It's a project out in Wisconsin. And I like this. It's a takeoff model, right? So it's a machine control model. So we're going to bring that in. Now, a couple of things to know. Do I need to set up a projection in this case? The answer, in my opinion, is 99% of the time, probably not. Now, if you're doing a construction model, a takeoff model, 3D model, and they're going to use machine control, then it's totally worth setting up your projection, right? Now, this file, as I said, came out of Wisconsin, so I'm going to go and set it up. And I know already that it is Wisconsin Central, So I'm gonna set it up like that. I'll hit next, and there we go. All right, so oh, sorry, I had this open. I just closed that one here. There we go. All right, so startup, we're good. There's nothing else I need to worry about right now. So I'm gonna click next, and there we go. All right, so I tend to do what I like to do. And sorry, I had a couple of things open just a second ago, so I changed my screens a little bit. Let me do this. I bring this Windows Explorer here. Let's open my class folder. Okay, so the file that I want to bring is this one here. It's called site grading, right? So a couple of things that we always want to do. We always want to open the PDF file and take a look at it. You know, what is it that we have, so on and so forth. Now, the key thing, and Lad, which is the guy that kind of passed me on this file, he actually took care of removing the title blocks, so nobody would know who the engineering company is. Actually, I don't even know who the engineering company is. Now, things that I want to note, north is facing up, so true north, and more importantly, scale factor. So I see that on the PDF, so those are good things to know. Now, a question that I get a lot of times, as I said before, is what happens, do we geolocate the PDF, or what happens? So I'm going to show you something. In this particular case, they happen to annotate, label some coordinates in the project, right? So I don't know if you can see it, but there's northing and easting here, and there's actually another one that was left here in the drawing with another northing and easting out here in this kind of, you know, lowermost corner of the parking lot in that site. So we can use those two later to basically position the drawing, you know, in the right place. So those are kind of the quick things that I always want to do. Now, as I said, with other construction sets, you know, one of the things that might happen is you might get the entire set. You might get, you know, 20, 30, 50 sheets. If it's an architectural project, you might get 200, 400 pages, right? So a little trick that I always explain to everybody is if you're in one of those situations, I don't know if you notice here, I am an Adobe guy, so I use Adobe, but I actually have the Pro version, right? Now, the reason for that is I can open a large sheet set, you know, 300, 200 pages, whatever, and then they can come in here, right? As you can see, and you know, in this case, it's a single sheet, but I could see all my sheets, and then working from those sheets, I can find out, okay, which one is the grading plan, which one is the, you know, as you'll see in the next project that I bring in, you know, it's a structural foundation plan, you know, it's a structural plan, so you'll see multiple levels and all that stuff. So what I like to do is I'll come in here, use this option, organize pages in Adobe, and then what I tend to do is I will click on the one that I need, or multiple ones, depending on the site, right? And then use the extract pages. Why? Because when we're importing into your CAD application using CADnet, if you have 300 pages, it's going to try to read 300 pages and bring 300 pages into your CAD file, which just doesn't make any sense. Plus, it's going to take forever. So what you do is extract the 2, 3, 4, 5 pages that you need, set them aside, you know, kind of what I did in here. I'll just go into my Windows Explorer where I have that one there. You know, I had this structural foundation plan, which I already extracted out of the sheet sets. So don't have to worry about it. But again, it's something to keep in mind. Don't bring all the pages. Adobe has options. Now, some of you guys might have other PDF applications or PDF reader applications. You know, very popular one that I used to use before, previous life, was Bluebeam. You know, so Bluebeam also has all the options to extract, and there's more. All right, so that's what I needed to know about this one. Now, what I tend to do just when I'm starting, I don't close out of Adobe right away. What I normally do is I just set it to the side, I put it on my other screen, so when I'm importing, I'm making sure that everything's still looking okay, all right? So what do we do next? What we need to do is we need to open CADnet, all right? So if you have your, and I have kind of a default installation right now, if you have your cars and menus toolbar here, CADnet is this one here. It looks like a double monitor screen with some green. I've heard different explanations. It's kind of the import documents icon. So click on that one. That will switch your menu to CADnet. Now, if you don't have the Cards and Menus toolbar, you can go into Settings and go all the way down into Cards and Menus, and then go find it there. You'll see CADnet menu. That switches the software to this. By the way, for those of you that maybe have our construction software, our Cards and Takeoff suite, or Takeoff R12, the functionality that I'll be talking about comes with those, all right? So if you're in Takeoff suite, you also open CADnet. If you have R12, it is part of the functionality. You just go into the PDF functionality. So you don't have to switch menus, just a little sidebar here. As I said, a lot of construction companies use our software. All right, so I have my menu here. Okay, so a couple of things to know, and you might know this already from Carson. File, edit, view, draw, inquiry, settings, points are all the same throughout most of the software. Not all the software, but most of the software. Then you'll see digitize, raster, and most importantly, PDF. We're going to click here and import PDF. Perfect. There we go. Now, in the menu, you'll notice that there's options to create a drawing to 3D PDF and 3D viewer to 3D PDF. So it's kind of a neat functionality. I do it a lot with 3D models for takeoff. You know, you can pass on a 3D PDF. You can do that straight from the viewers, by the way. All right, so I'm gonna go import PDF. Let's click there. There we go. Now in this folder, I only have a couple of files. I'll start with this one, site rating, the one that we're looking at just a second ago. So we'll click there, we'll hit open. There it goes. Okay, perfect. All right, so a couple of things to know. Even vectorized PDF, so again, remember, vectorized PDF was created by AutoCAD, Revit, MicroStation, some other CAD application. Now, in some cases, they might say, yes, I want to export to PDF, but I am not going to give you the layers, right? So what happened in this particular file, and I like it for that reason actually, is that they actually kept the PDF layers, the CAD layers in the PDF file, right? So very rare, I'll be honest with you, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 files in the last year, 2 years that had layers. Most everybody just saying, nope, we're not gonna give you our layer name, layer conventions, all that stuff. No particular reason, I mean, it's just a setting and most everybody just has it on, right? So you don't get layers. Now what will happen is you'll see this one, it will say use colors for layers, right? So the software will try to distinguish. Now, for now, let's take advantage of the fact that PDF layers is available in this case, right? So we're gonna go there. All right, now the next option, we can insert everything as a block. Me personally, I always turn that off. In my opinion, it makes no sense to do the import and then have to explode the import, just do it right away. Now, here's one where you really have to think about it. There's this join nearest. Now, what it is, as you know, you might be familiar with some of the tools that we have under the edit menu. There is a join nearest. So you have lines that are very close together, we'll join them automatically, right? Now, this is coming from the PDF, so it's reading the PDF and immediately trying to join all the line work, right? So there's not a lot of settings. You only have the join or not join, basically, right? So what happens here is I don't like that one, because as it's running the conversion, sometimes you might see, especially when you have a contour map, with dashed lines and there's multiple lines going through, so on and so forth, you might have a bunch of little lines that are close together and it's going to join those, which isn't necessarily the contour line. It might be a ditch line, slope or something that's going along some contour lines, or maybe building information, so on and so forth. So I usually turn that one off. Again, there is an edit under edit menu, join nearest, and you have some settings there. So you can say, hey, it has to be the same layer, it has to be the same thickness, it has to be the same elevation, etc. So just to make them a truer join nearest. All right, reduce vertices. Again, depending on what I'm doing, most of the time we'll have it on. The reason for that is it's going to convert into polylines, right? So if you have contour maps coming in and there's hundreds of vertices on every line, this will help. It just removes a bunch of that. There's a tolerance for that. It's kind of internal tolerance, but it's a good tolerance. So I usually leave that one there. Now, use zero line width. Again, if you had one of those PDF files where there's a lot of thick lines and stuff like that, you might want to turn it on. Me personally, I kind of like it. So when I open it up in CAD, I get to see that. And then skip tiny lines. Yeah, little things. You're talking a tenth, less than a tenth. It's not a tenth, not even a tenth. It's like 100th, less than 100th. They won't be imported. So skip over all that. It's just noise in the drawing. All right, finally, the last step here is to insert line work. Now, I mentioned before that you also have the option where somebody scanned the paper plan and saved it to PDF, and that's what you got, right? So in those cases, what will happen is most of the options here will be grayed out. It's particularly this one, insert line work. This is going to be grayed. So your option will be just going to image options, and then you have this. You can say, you can tell the software, go ahead and insert it as an image. So you're here, it already figured out it's an image, might as well insert it now. That's what I tend to do. Now, there is an option to vectorize an insert. So we will try to run that raster to vector conversion. I'll be honest with you guys, most of the time, I mean, when I'm lucky, I get about 15–20% of the raster to vector conversion meaning areas that I think where it worked, that I'm comfortable with what it did. So the automated raster to vector conversion, I get 20% of the drawing, I'm happy. So most of the time, I really don't, I just insert it as an image. There are some tools to convert, to vectorize a file, right? So just FYI, I'll show you the menu. I'm not gonna run one example of those. All right, so we'll do this. All I need to do now is click on insert. There it goes. Now it's asking me for where is the insertion point for the PDF. So what I tend to do, and this is just personal, I like to start at 5,000, right? So click there. This is a local project, that's fine. Rotation angle is 0. There we go. Scale. You guys remember I read the scale from the drawing earlier, so it's 30 scale. We'll go ahead and type in 30. Then hit enter. It's going to read the file, and there it goes. Now I can see that it found, a good number of vertices there. I was able to remove a few, about 4,000 vertices. So that's a good thing. And there's our file. So the thing that I tend to do right away, I'll zoom into traditional, something like the scale, and I'll run a distance command, right? From here, say to there. In my distance, you can see it down there, shows up at 30. So I have confirmation that everything looked, pretty much how it should. Everything is where it is. Now, the key thing right now is all of those became CAD objects, right? So, there'll be some fluffiness here and there, especially, around text and things like that. That's pretty normal. But, other things like lines came through really well. So if I was doing this for a machine control model, right? It'd be a lot easier if I started the erase command. There we go. So now we have standard CAD entities that I can go delete, clean up my file. I mean, this one in particular, because they kept the layers. Again, it's really rare. I haven't seen a ton of those, but it happens. I mean, they do exist. I can see the layers here, so I could also go and freeze some layers and things like that. Again, fairly rare. It does happen. One thing that I always tell people is about communication. So if you're getting PDF files and they're creating a PDF file for you, and it's a company that you have a good relationship with, you might as well ask them, is it possible for you to leave the layers on, so that way when we import, we'll do that. Now, people ask me the question, well, if I'm asking them, shouldn't I be asking for a drawing file? Well, if you can ask for the drawing file, of course, especially for construction models, takeoff models, that does make a little difference. All right, so there you go. Okay, so you noticed I started this file at 5,000, right? So if we were to do a quick ID, let's just run an ID on a point here. Let's snap to this contour line here. So that's at 5,100, 5,400, so on and so forth. Now, in this particular case, in this project, this is the reason I keep my PDF to the side. Sometimes the text is not quite readable, so I can zoom into my PDF and read the coordinates there. So I can see that there is a given coordinate for that point, right? So how do we move it? And that's a question that I get asked. Maybe you're just doing construction layout and, probably the engineer, the surveyor has set up some control points for your project. You want to align to that, right? So whether it's localized or aligned to that, whichever methods, it's same result, right? So what I'm going to do is I actually cheated, right? Of course. So what I did is I actually wrote down the coordinates of those 2 points, and I created a little ASCII file. I mean, nothing fancy, I confess. I just cheated very simply. very simple-minded here. So sorry, that opened my other screen. So there it is. I wrote down the coordinates of those 2 points. 101 corner, that lower left corner, and then 102 the upper right corner. I call them PKs, point knowns, whatever. So I created this little ASCII file with that information because I knew I would use it later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into points, import ASCII. Let's bring that file. Here it is. I control points. Perfect. There you go. My 2 points. We are in, here's X. What is it? 15. Can't spell today. 22. There we go. Okay, draw points. Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and draw points. And I have my field to finish table, I think, connected. So I'm going to say, let's use field to finish because I have some symbols I like. So there we go. Point protection, perfect. And everything looks okay here. So I'm going to hit OK. Perfect. Imported the 2 points. All right. And I didn't have my field to finish selected. So there it is. There we go. Perfect. And there they are. So there's my 2 points, and I'm going to go ahead and cancel. I don't know why I drew a line on my PKs. So let's go ahead and delete that line because we don't need that line. But there you go. So there's those 2 points. Now the rest of my file, as we know, going to be a little tiny dot right around here. There it is. Right. So what do we do? What we're going to use is under the Edit menu, Align to the Align, which is a really neat tool. Right, so what am I aligning? I'm aligning everything here. There we go, perfect. All right, now notice the prompt. It says, what is the first source point? So my first source point, what I need to do is to snap to that endpoint. My destination, well, as I said, I cheated, so I called this point number 101. There we go, 101. Okay, now it's asking for the second source point. And just moving around here very quickly. Let's snap to that endpoint there. Perfect. And what's my my control point? 102. I'm gonna hit enter. Perfect. All right. So notice what it did. It actually calculated the scale factors. So I'm using US survey feet, right? So it's telling me, hey, you want to make an adjustment here? And if I'm putting this to ground, my answer would be, yeah, I probably want to use that. We're going to be using US survey feet. So I'm going to say, yes, let's go ahead. Now, if it was an architectural plan, I would probably say no. The architects do not understand US survey feet. So say yes, go ahead and scale. Perfect. There we go. So everything got moved. Let me do a quick zoom extent, and there it is. Now, if you had done something where it has happened to me, by the way, where I'll forget to clean up something or delete something, or I froze some layers and I do my zoom extent and everything's really tiny, but I know that what I needed to move is here. Well, a little trick that I use is I go into the Edit menu, I go into Erase outside, and just do my rectangular shape. And now I know I've cleaned everything outside of that area, which is what I need, right? So there we go. Now, if we go and run a quick ID, let's do the same point. So I'm gonna do a quick ID there and snap it to that endpoint there. Notice the coordinates of that point now. So this is ready, good to go. Now in this case, if I was trying to do a 3D model for, machine control for grading, for takeoffs, now I need to start working with this. This is a flat file, start using the elevation tools, right? So that was that PDF.